Hey guys, what's up? It's Chin from Viden, and today I want to talk to you about GROND. In this video, what I want to do is journey back to Middle-earth prehistory and look at some events that took place in the First Age. And with that, I hope that by the end of this video, you will perhaps agree with me that GROND is not just any old battering ram, no, but that this piece of military equipment has way more to it than what meets the eyes. Let's start with the basics. In its most simple form, GROND, it's a battering ram, in the sense that its primary function was to break open fortifications or gates. The first thing that makes GROND stand out, it's huge. Tolkien describes GROND as being as thick as an enormous tree, so clearly trees in Middle-earth are a lot thicker than the trees here that we have on Earth today. Tolkien tells us that GROND is 150 feet long and 60 feet high. GROND is the biggest battering ram in Middle-earth, and to mobilize this giant piece of equipment, GROND was operated by a team of 4 or 5 great beasts. Tolkien didn't give us a description of those great beasts, so Alan Lee, who was the conceptual artist and designer in the film, he came up with these giant beasts who kind of look like rhinos today. GROND was escorted by a gang of orcs who stood on either side of the giant wolf head, and several trolls were used to utilize it. GROND was also super scary. We're told in the books, and we see in the film, that fire burned in its giant jaw. We're also told that creatures pulling it would occasionally go mad and run through the battlefield, trampling and killing anything in sight. And this is where things get interesting for me, and it's the reason why I've been thinking about GROND all weekend, and I'm making this video about it. Okay, so the reason why creatures who pulled GROND would go mad and run through the battlefield was as though they were possessed, was because GROND was cursed with evil magic. In the world of Lord of the Rings, Tolkien does not explicitly define what magic is. Instead, magic is a term used by the hobbits actually, and they use it to describe things or objects that's sort of outside of their general understanding of the world. So during the siege of Minas Tirith in the film, we're introduced to GROND when the armies of Mordor were attempting to smash down the gate with a conventional battering ram. But the gate of Minas Tirith was very, very well fortified. This is no surprise. The gate of Minas Tirith consisted of large rolling doors made of steel and iron, and it was in between towers of almost unbreakable stone. In response to this gate, Sauron's army ordered that GROND be brought forth to smash the gate open.
And smash it down, so nothing can reach it! Bring up the wolf's head.
And this was not just a coincidence, and in my personal reflection and interpretation of what we're told in the books, Sauron was waiting for this moment for a very long time. And if we pay close attention to the film, we get a sense of the importance of GROND during a very specific moment that lasts about 2 seconds on screen. It's that moment where Gandalf has a look of sheer terror and panic in his face. This moment really struck with me when I saw the film for the first time. And it's as if Gandalf knew that this is seriously bad. Gandalf was clearly terrified, and I think I know why. What we're told in the books is that GROND was specifically built and designed to ensure victory in the battlefield. To make sure that GROND reached its destination, Sauron went the extra mile and scavenged all the lands leading to Minas Tirith just to provide safe passage for this giant equipment. The sheer look of terror on Gandalf's face tells us that Gandalf was terrified because he knew the gates would be breached as soon as GROND reached them. We have to back up and take a look at some events that took place in the First Age of Middle-earth to understand what likely went through Gandalf's mind at that moment on screen that I cannot forget. So unlike in the films when it's Gothmog who orders that GROND be brought forward,
Bring up the wolf's head.
it's the Witch King of Atmar who orders this in the book. Now, Gandalf is really, he's fantastic in battle and he can hold his own weight. And I think Gandalf is the character we all love for many reasons. Despite the fact that he's really powerful, the fact that he's a Maya wizard, he still comes across as everybody's favorite grandpa. He can be patient, but he also gets frustrated. He's wise, but makes the occasional error and judgment. He's kind and loving, but he can tell you to go away when he gets cranky. So while Gandalf is a man of many skill and the type of guy we know we can count on for leadership and guidance, if there's one thing that he fears or is insecure about, it's anything that has to do with Morgoth or any creature from the First Age. Just like, as we saw in the Fellowship of the Ring, the Balrog of Morgoth. Long story short, Balrogs are powerful creatures created by Morgoth in the first age of Middle-earth. Morgoth himself was the very first Dark Lord who could probably run circles around Sauron, who's the Dark Lord in our films. Morgoth was a very evil and powerful being, and you have to remember that. Now, Balrogs have been fighting in the side of evil for a very long time, and while most were destroyed, some managed to escape and hide in the Earth's deep caverns. Gandalf was afraid of the Balrog because he knew that the Balrog was one of the few beings who could kill him and end his mission. And he was right, in a way, because in effect, Gandalf, he did die.
You fools.
What's important for you to understand here is that anything that was a threat in the First Age would be an unstoppable terror in the Third Age. And the Third Age is the age which our movies take place in. So back in the First Age, GROND was the name that was given to Morgoth's giant mace. A mace is a blunt weapon that has a heavy head on the end, and it's used to deliver powerful strokes. It's like just what we see in the film that the Witch King holds. Remember that Morgoth is an enemy from the First Age and that he was way more powerful than Sauron, who was also alive and well in the First Age. The relationship between the two was like a sort of like a manager-intern type of relationship. Sauron is like their intern who used to pick up Morgoth's lunch. But back in the First Age, Sauron was the lieutenant of Morgoth, and after Morgoth's defeat, Sauron was able to kind of poach many of Morgoth's servants to his own cause, even if Sauron was not as powerful as his former master. In other words, Sauron, he went around name-dropping Morgoth, bragging about how he was the lieutenant of Sauron and he was thus able to rally everyone to his side. It's kind of like if somebody like, nobody casually mentions that, hey, I work with Beyonce or Drake, like this person automatically becomes 100% more important, right? Like that's what he did. So this is how Sauron gained the allegiance of his former master's worshippers. And eventually he succeeded and became this super evil guy that our heroes are fighting during the Lord of the Rings movies. So a very interesting piece of information that we're told about the time of Morgoth was that each time Morgoth stroked the ground with his mace, the mace named GROND, it shook the land like a bolt of thunder, creating pits from which smoke and fire would erupt. So much later in the Third Age, during the Battle of the Lord of the Rings, Sauron constructed the battering ram that we get in the movies, and he called it GROND after Morgoth's mace, because the name derives from something super evil and very powerful. It derives from the ancient weapon of his former master that was capable of huge danger. GROND was designed solely to crush through the gates of Minas Tirith and cause a shit ton of chaos. And this is precisely why Sauron made such a big deal to ensure that safe passage was provided for GROND, and why he specifically ordered that the Witch King of Angmar to have GROND smash the gates of Minas Tirith. Once that happened, pretty much every evil creature entered Minas Tirith, and if you watch the sequence of the film, Jackson has every bad creature we've seen so far, he throws them at Minas Tirith, and it kind of brings the point home that GROND unleashes great evil. So let's back up a moment. When Gandalf hears the orcs shouting GROND, 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 at that moment, what's going on is that Gandalf is reliving Middle-earth's prehistory. He's remembering the great evil that existed in the First Age, a great evil that is way more powerful than the horrible creatures who are sacking the city of Minas Tirith right now. He's remembering Morgoth and Morgoth's cruelty. He's remembering the battle he had with Balrog, the Balrog of Morgoth, a battle that was fatal for him, and that was not so long ago. So in that moment, Gandalf knew that if this cursed ram crushed the gates, first evil from the First Age would go into Minas Tirith, and it would be, very bad for them. And also this resulted in the Witch King's confrontation with Gandalf. And when that happened, Gandalf was a hair's breadth away from being killed. I mean, the Witch King was seconds away from finishing Gandalf, but he was distracted by the horn of Rohan. When he heard the horn, he stopped attempting to kill Gandalf, and his foul beast flew to attack the Rohirrim army, because at that moment, Rohan was a more immediate threat to his goals than Gandalf. So all of this being said, I hope that I've given you a reason to think twice about GROND. GROND is not just a giant piece of military equipment. GROND is associated with great evil from the First Age. It's the kind of evil that is no match for Gandalf. It's also the type of evil that threatened the success of our heroes' mission of destroying the ring and ridding the world of this great evil. That's all I wanted to say for today. I hope you learned a thing or two about GROND and you think about him differently during your next Lord of the Rings marathon. And if you wish, like this video and subscribe to my channel. It really does help. Farewell.